So Disney's decided to make a crazy decision and put the live-action version of Mulan onto their streaming service Disney Plus starting September 4th. But there's a giant catch to it that may ultimately change the entire film industry as we know it. So let's talk about it. So Mulan was supposed to come out in March of 2020, but due to a global pandemic, it got pushed back to the summer before eventually that release date died as well, and it became this, we don't really know what's going to happen with our films. And it wasn't just Mulan. Black Widow was another film that just kind of became unknown. And that's just Disney. There's a lot of other movie studios with a bunch of films that have had varying different degrees of releases or pushbacks or whatnot. But Disney's decision to put Mulan out comes off the back of a lot of other decisions that have happened in 2020. So let me just talk about those really quick before we move forward to see how Mulan might change the entire movie-going experience. When movie theaters had to shut down in early March of 2020, there was no telling how long those movie theaters were going to be shut. So the possibility of those films that had already been in theaters coming back into theaters whenever they were going to reopen seems slim to none. So a deal was made between the movie theater companies and the movie studio companies that the films that were currently already in theaters, they could be rented video on demand, or like with Disney Plus, with Onward, they just put that film directly onto their streaming service, basically taking a loss, considering that film was only in theaters for a few short weeks. Now, anytime that a studio decided to put a movie out instead of putting it into theaters or waiting to re-release it or whatever the situation was, they always went to the theaters to get their blessing. Except for one film that kind of changed a lot of things, and that was Universal's Trolls World Tour. Universal just decided to put it out on video on demand and not tell the movie theater companies anything about it, which in turn made the movie theater companies angry. In fact, at one point AMC was saying they were never going to play Universal films ever again, but all of that beef got squashed pretty quickly, or in a few weeks, because there became this deal between Universal and AMC that would impact the movie theater business going forward. And that idea would be that instead of a 3-month gap between a movie release in movie theaters and the possibility of putting it out on Blu-ray or rental or whatever, that gap would be shortened to 17 days. Universal's reason behind shortening this gap from 3 months to 17 days was so that they could simultaneously have a movie in theaters as well as putting it out on video on demand. Because with Trolls World Tour, they saw the rental of $20 being well worth their while. And consumers liked it as well. Instead of taking a family of 4 to the movie theaters and spending over $40, they could watch it at home, making their own popcorn with their own sodas for way cheaper. And realistically, Trolls World Tour probably made more money on video on demand than it would have while it had been in theaters. And Trolls World Tour isn't the only rental that has happened in this late period of the pandemic. Bill and Ted's Face the Music is going to be a rental on demand as well. However, Mulan is a radically different story. Disney announced that Mulan would be available on Disney Plus for an additional $30. But this is not a one-time rental like Trolls World Tour. You pay your $20, you watch the film, and it's done. This time around, you pay $30 for Mulan, and it is always on Disney Plus for you, meaning that you're basically buying the film the same way that you would a Blu-ray or DVD, or if you were to buy it digitally through iTunes. Gamers will know that downloadable content is a strategy for a lot of video game companies to make extra money on a game that already exists. And now with Disney doing something similar, this opens up a whole new revenue stream for the entire film industry. Now, Disney has said that this will be the only time that they do this. This will be the only film that gets this kind of downloadable content treatment. However, you have to assume that if Mulan does really well, the possibility of putting out a film like Black Widow would be something that they would consider. And in 2020, we're also seeing the rise of streaming services from movie studios. Disney put theirs out in late 2019, but we've also seen Warner Brothers put out HBO Max and Universal put out Peacock recently, making sure that they could do very similar things to what Disney's doing with Mulan. As we pave this new path, this does raise a ton of questions. In a non-pandemic situation, Mulan coming out as this video-on-demand downloadable content situation creates an undercut for the movie theaters. So how do the movie theaters feel about Mulan coming out as a completely downloadable, watchable film that they'll always have, not just this one-time rental? Another good question would be, what if you did just want to rent Mulan? Will there ever be a possibility to rent Mulan for a one-time viewing? And at what point does Mulan just get added to Disney Plus as a regular, normal title? Onward got added to Disney Plus, and anybody that had the regular subscription was able to just watch it whenever they wanted to. However, with Mulan, are you always going to have to buy Mulan, or will there be a shelf time, maybe the 3-month movie theater package, that will allow it to then be seen for free? So essentially, are you paying $30 to see a film earlier than everybody else would? And now that we have this digital download idea for Disney Plus, are they going to completely cut out iTunes and Amazon and all the other places that you could digitally buy films? For those people that have been creating a digital library of their films, will they have to have it spread out now across varying streaming platforms because they'll only come out exclusively on those platforms? The success or failure of Mulan could completely change the film industry. So my question to you is, are you interested in this landscape change? Or are you more interested in still going to the theaters or still renting at a Redbox? Or are you really keen on this idea of being able to buy a film before it's made available to the mass public? And if you were interested in buying Mulan, would you also be interested in buying a whole series? An original series like The Mandalorian, perhaps? Not to say that that series wouldn't come out to the mass public, but being able to see it earlier than anybody else. Are you willing to not only spend the $6.99 or $9.99 or $12.99, whatever it is for your subscription services, plus an additional amount for those downloadable contents? Are you willing to continue to spend money on new media, on new films, on new television shows? Leave your comments down below and let me know what you think. I'm really interested to see where Mulan takes us. I'm interested to see how the film industry changes and adapts post-pandemic. I understand that right now it's kind of a crazy time in 2020, but in the future, I can see the film industry completely changing altogether. But again, let me know your thoughts and comments, and if you're interested in supporting the channel on Patreon, I've got exclusive podcasts and exclusive videos going there all the time. You can click the button, or you can go into the description box down below and click there for the link to Patreon. And be sure to check out the other videos that have popped up on the side here. And until next time, thanks for watching, and keep moving forward.